Yeah. So good evening. Everybody is here. Thank you for being part of this session. I'm Tanuja Rai Pradhan. I am one of the founding team member of ClarityX, which is a analytics and consulting company. I have Nachiket. He can introduce himself, and then we'll start the session.
Thank you, Tanuja. Absolutely excited to be here discussing our thought leadership report with the industry veterans is always a great experience. My name is Nachiket. I am part of MasterCard Services. MasterCard Services is the consulting advisory arm of MasterCard. We extensively use MasterCard's aggregated payment data, spends data, to drive the customer and location level insights to help retailers. I'm based in their Mumbai office and absolutely excited to be here today. Thank you again.
So we'll start. Nachiket, you need to. So yes, it is about India. So what the next one. So the agenda will be, we will first just take you through few slides from the insight of the report. Then we will talk about how Mastercard and ClarityX along with MapMy India, three of us putting together can help you in network planning and strategy. If time permits, then we will also want to show you the demo of our GIS tool which solves for this, and we have created a deliverable format also where now it's the era of DIY, so you can put the location and all the parameters will be popped up. So that is the agenda moving forward. So what we have done in this report, while there are, we will also give you the QR code. It is also part of the delegate kit. You can always download the full report. This is just, we are just telling you what we did in that finally. So there are two angles. One is we actually saw what is the readiness in terms of retail for the sector. And there are many parameters which talks about the supply readiness. So we looked at retail landscape, how is the branded versus unbranded retail is emerging across the country. Then what is the supporting infrastructure, the residential areas, the commercial office complexes, the high footfall areas which finally results into conversion. Then, we have also analyzed a lot of traffic data. So, because MapMy India, we track 24 hours traffic for the entire country, including urban, rural, national highways, state highways, and the lanes as well. Not only that, we can actually curate solutions where you can see the quality of traffic, which means you can carve out the roads where the passenger vehicle traffic is over-indexed or higher versus, let's say, commercial vehicles. So all that data, plus that data is just the supply data. You also need to know that, is there a market for you? Are there consumers? So we do have a lot of data sets on demography. And for population, maybe I can proudly say that we might have the most updated population for the country. Again, whatever I am saying is available for the entire country, rural, urban, suburban. So there we have updated population, affluence, the gender split, the ownership data for 2023. It was done through lot of variables like our ISRO. We have a tie with ISRO, so a lot of satellite imaging was also used to do that. Then what we have done, it is all this. We also, so when it is about the location, you also want to know, what is the consumer preference. So we have an app called Mapples, which is the sole competition to Google Map anywhere in the world, and in India definitely. So we use that data to see where people are going. So let's say if a QSR brand wants to go to a market with a special cuisine, and if they want to search or if they want to understand the appetite of the market, that is the variable which we use. Maple Analytics it is called, to see that, okay, let's say within Aligarh, how many people are actually searching for Thai. Thai as a cuisine is ready for the city by looking at whether there are restaurants which are serving Thai food or not. So those kind of parameters. Then it doesn't stop, of course, because it's at the end it is all stated, it is all derived. The actual data comes from Mastercard, where it is about whether people are spending or not. Let's say when I said, okay, whether people, there is a Thai restaurant in Aligarh, there is a Thai restaurant, searches in Aligarh, but people are not spending on Thai restaurant. They are spending rather on Chinese. So that data completely changes everything what we have done so far. So this report, we have tried to analyze all these components, and then we finally, and the analysis period for this report is last 3 years. So because now retail is growing so significantly that, the 5-year gap is pretty high. So 3 years is more recent. Yeah, moving forward. So this is overall trend. So what's happening? What is new? Southern India, it was always forever, it was the popular, geography in terms of retail across the sector. Whether it is FMCG, whether it was branded jewelry, so it remains that. Then, there are a few categories which have emerged in last 3 years. Say thanks to quick commerce, say thanks to COVID in some way, that we got used to buying grocery even at house, right? Otherwise, we never thought. So F&B has seen the highest growth in terms of number of stores which spanned, came up in last 3 years. Jewelry, again, that category has also became more important, and this is all supply data. This is about, how many number of stores have grown, irrespective of branded versus unbranded. It is just the total count. Then electronics. So these three, items have actually, in terms of organized retail, they do cut across. Then, usually we think organized retail is moving higher, but no, high streets do remain relevant. For smaller tier cities, definitely when we see the search analytics and when we see the spend, high streets do overpower, the organized retail per se. The other one H, so we call it 2H and 3F. So 2H is highway and high streets, which are, the new emerging corridors for retail. 3Fs on highway, which is, fuel, F&B, and now fashion. When we speak to the brands, there are many fashion brands which want to move to highway, thanks to the infrastructure, built up, which is already created for the company. This map talks about, the retail maturity. It means, a number of retail store divided by per square meter, per square kilometer. So that way you can clearly see southern states are still important. Northeast states, they are good news. And not only in retail, across the sector, we have seen that, those seven sisters are also contributing to the economy. Yeah, moving forward. Now, I will give it to Nachiket. You can talk about the spends, etc.
No, absolutely. Thanks, Tanuja. So what we are seeing is the growth in India is getting decentralized. What do we mean by decentralized? Earlier, the large component of growth was captured by metro and tier 1 cities. But slowly, larger and larger percentage of spends are coming from tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5. And this is evident in the data. So in 2023, right, the chart on the left side, 73% of the total spends were coming from metro, tier 1 and tier 2. This proportion in 2025 has reduced to 63%. It's a massive change, 10 percentage drop, which means the share of tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 and the rural has gone up from 27% to 37%. And this trend is not only applicable for the physical retail, even in the online retail, we are witnessing the same change. The contribution of tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 and rural is increasing very fast. If you see 1%, it's a very, very small number in 2023, by the rural areas is being contributed to 3%. So almost 3x jump in the wallet share or in the market share within the country's total spending. If I have to pick one specific data point or one sectoral data point, grocery, and if you compare what is the outlets growth for the grocery outlets, in tier 3 to 5, the grocery outlets have grown by 104%, almost doubled in last 2 to 3 years. The same growth when we compare with metro, tier 1 and tier 2 is at 32%. So connecting the dots, the proliferation of the highway infrastructure, proliferation of the digital economy, consumers getting matured and that maturity shifting from the urban metro areas to rural areas is clearly paving the path for the growth of retail business in tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 and the rural areas, and data is all there to support that, to support the story. Going a bit deeper into specific categories, we saw that overall growth is exponential. even much faster in tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 rural areas. But this growth is very different when you double click on specific categories. The one category which sort of stands out, or there are two categories which sort of stand out, are jewelry and the electronics, who have exhibited consistent growth across metros as well as across smaller tier towns. So if you see the jewelry, the retail outlet and the spend both have grown at almost 80%, probably partly due to the pure prices of silver and gold, which have significantly increased in the last 2 years. Even in the electronics, as the consumers are shifting their spends to more discretionary, the electronics and consumer goods have seen significant uptick in the spends, almost growing at 50% both in terms of outlet and the spend. Also, this growth or the contribution of these sectors in the total spends have also changed a lot. So I am referring to the chart on the right hand side. The upper curve, which is in the brown, is the maturity curve for metro, tier 1 and the tier 2 segments. The lower curve is for tier 3 to tier 5 and the rural areas, which is in blue. What you will see is that the grocery, apparel and the F&B in metro and tier 1 and tier 2 have lost share in the spends by around 2 to 3 percentage points, which means as in the total, while the total spends are growing, their share in the customer's wallet is coming down. But the electronic consumer durables and jewelry, that spend in the consumer wallet is going up. So consumers are spending more on electronics, consumers are spending more on consumer durables, they are spending more on jewelry. That's the story in metro, tier 1, tier 2. This story, when you come to rural areas or the tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 and rural areas, is different. Those areas have more consistent growth across categories. So none of the subcategory or none of the sector per se has actually reached the maturity in tier 3 to tier 5 areas. So the shift in the consumer wallet, which we are seeing in the urban areas or in the metro areas, is yet to happen to the same extent in the rural and semi-urban areas. So while metro and tier 1 are more tilting towards more value-led experiential kind of domains or kind of sectors, tier 3 to tier 5 is still a penetration-led growth where most of the players are still finding pockets to establish their stores and grow the market. Now coming to a very interesting trend, along with this growth, which is happening, as we saw, sectorally different, but more or less consistent across India, there is a consistent premiumization that is happening across the sectors. And it's more pronounced in three sectors, which is apparel, F&B, and grocery. So if you dissect the spends in terms of their ticket sizes, so we have dissected into 4 ticket sizes: 0 to 1,000 rupees, 1,000 to 5,000 rupees, 5,000 to 25,000 rupees, and 25,000 rupees plus. In the last 2 years, between 2023 to 2025, the spends which had ticket size of 25,000 plus, their share in the total apparel spends has gone up by 8 percentage points, right? In the categories of 0 to 1,000, 1,000 to 5,000, they have lost 1 and 7 percentage points. Means the customer who was earlier spending 100 rupees, now a bulk, a significantly larger chunk of those 100 rupees is coming from a much higher ticket size transactions, which means that the brands which kind of doing some experiential positioning, who are giving some differential value proposition to the customers, are now capturing the higher wallet share of the consumer. And that's not only true in apparel. Of course, it's more pronounced in apparel because apparel per se itself is an experiential category. But even in food and beverage, that trend is clearly visible. Of course, the shift is around 6 percentage points. In grocery, that shift is around 5 percentage points for the highest tier, which is 25,000 plus. But even in 5 to 25,000 rupees, we are seeing that the spends are slightly shifting in terms of the premiumization, which means that while the budget brands are growing and that growth is pretty much seen in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 across the cities, we will see slowly the premiumization trend catching up in even those tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 towns, right? While that trend may not be visible yet, in next 2 to 3 to 5 years, that trend somewhere will catch up even in the outside metro and tier 1 areas. So doing this entire analysis for last 3 years data, combining the multiple data sets across the Clarity X and the MasterCard, what are the key themes that are emerging, which are very, very relevant for every retailer? So first is growth is becoming hyper-local, right? So within city, you can see certain pin codes, certain micro markets which are growing, but city as a whole may be stagnant. So that demarcation is becoming increasingly visible at a micro market or at a hyper local level. Category momentum, which we saw earlier, completely varies. So the electronics, consumer goods, jewelry as categories are seeing a consistent growth across the markets, while some of the other categories like F&B, grocery are saturating in some markets while growing in other markets. So A, growth is hyper local. B, growth is a category dependent, right? C, the expansion, any expansion decision or a growth decision now needs two lenses. One is a supply lens, one is a demand lens. As Tanuja was explaining, your highway infrastructure, demographics, establishments data will give you a lot of supply indicator lenses. But the spends data or what consumers are spending, what consumers are valuing will also give demand lens. And when you combine the supply lens and the demand lens, probably that is when you can arrive at a more pinpointed decision on first, where should I set up my next store or which is the area or a micro market I should grow. Second, what should be the format of my growth? Is it a big size format? Is it a medium size format? It's a small size format. See, what are the categories? Is it a more premium category? Is it more budget category? So all these questions and answers can be uncovered only when you combine your supply and demand side growth parameters. So the fourth, as I said, the competitive advantage for the players here is how do they use this data for the decisive action. A lot of times data is available to the players in multiple forms. You have internal data, you have market data, you have spends data from a player like MasterCard, you have a lot of traffic data, establishment data from the players like ClarityX. But somewhere all these data points need to act, need to come together, and the decisions which are based on that decisive action coming from data needs to be implemented for the growth. Tanuja, if you want to add anything.
Yeah. So on the last point only, what we are saying is, there was a era when it was about which city, then it was about which pin code. Now there is a power of data and analytics where you can think of within pin code which area. So we have, whatever we are talking about, it is divided. You have that power to divide that pin code into 1 square kilometer grid. So, one pin code now, that one pin code has a multiple demographies, right? So, that luxury cannot be just for one pin code. Within pin code, there are, nuances. Just to give you one example, we did some work for a, e-commerce guy, and we did it together. And there is one pin code which ticks, on all the aspects, affluence, your population, your traffic number, everything, but it doesn't tick on online grocery spend. Very high pin code, and I can give you the name in case you are from there, Vasant Vihar. So nobody, otherwise, if you are not looking at spend data, you may go ahead and say, अरे ये तो सबसे अच्छा market है. But वहाँ पे बंगले हैं सब, वहाँ पे कुक को 20,000 रुपए दिया जाता है, वो मैनेज करता है, कोई जेप्टो ब्लिंकिट नहीं यूज़ करता. So these kind of nuances that you can only find out when you have both the data sets together. First data set will tell you, okay, we can at least list, okay, these are the 20 locations, and within 20 locations, which are those top 3 locations, that's where the spend data come. So that's what we are saying. It is not no more about, India being one Now it is not even about pin code being one, demography. So you have power to cut and slice the data and check and do that. So now anyway, I think in our discussion we
Yeah.
spoke about it, that
But
how.
before we move into demos, probably any questions,
Yeah, yeah,
any thoughts? Yeah.
yeah. You're not. Ye- You can use this.
So you are saying that you are going to be spreading out the distinction between online and offline in this.
Yes. The spend data.
And when we talk about tier 2, tier 3, where most of the transactions also is cash in today's, we are working in India, we are not working abroad
Yes,
where still the
yes,
plastic money
yes.
and the e-commerce is so.
True.
So how do we tap that? Because
So
tier 3, tier 4 primarily still is a cash where cards and everything might be,
so
UPIs have come in, but still cash transactions is quite huge.
yeah, definitely. But that's why I said, the first layer is all location, demography, consumer preference, right? The way you use the credit card data on top of it, you let's say if you're a high-end brand, it is about creme da creme from that location. That's where you use the spend data. You're right that the credit card penetration is still limited in smaller ones. So we are trying to capture some UPI data as well, but as of now, not too confident to even talk about it. But yes, that limitation remains. Nachiket, you want to add something?
So what we are seeing is that as the banks are also expanding in tier through tier 3 cities, a lot of people are getting carded, right? So early signs of digital maturity and economic maturity of the consumer is also being shown when he starts using the card transactions. And we can compare what the card transactions volume was today vis-a-vis what it was 2 years back, which can be used to create lookalikes and assess the growth potential. To your point, it's not an exact data, but at least it gives an indication that yes, at this pin code or at this level, there is a maturity that some spends have started coming on even on the carded rails.
Like you were just referring about.
No, absolutely. No. So probably, I mean, imagine a player who wants to set up a dark store, right? And the player is prioritizing the locations across India to set up the dark store. Will
I think he's talking about cash on delivery.
Cash on
Yeah.
delivery, yeah, that's how it is.
Hello. I think, yeah. Hi. I think, the point that you mentioned in your presentation regarding, tier 3 and 2, 3, 4, 5 getting better highways and better infrastructure, and that's where the whole action is happening. I come from one of such towns from Assam, which is like tier 3 and tier 4. And my store, we own the largest departmental store in Assam, and we sit bang on National Highway 15, which is the second busiest highway of Northeast. One thing that, he was mentioning, premiumization. I mean, in your third slide, we saw that categories like apparel and stuff like that, they are getting premium. There's a lot of conversion, whereas the ADV value is going up vis-a-vis the other categories. But one thing which we in that part of the world we feel always, and we have seen, with premiumization and with urbanization, convenience is becoming the key. And card, when you go deeper down in terms of, tiers, people, you know, residing in tier 3, 4, they don't have that confidence with a credit card. I mean, because the banks haven't reached there, or they haven't reached to the bank, number one. They don't have any credit history, there is no credit score for that matter. UPI comes at very handy. And now with the advent of lot of tech and AI, which is kind of scrapping the UPI data, and the UPI UADI Authority of India, they are now also opening up their source and kind of integrating with a lot of platforms. How do you see that the next growth of story of retail in India would happen for surely tier 2, and hence how card versus UPI, I mean, quote unquote, convenience becomes the real game changer?
No, absolutely. And see, today India has only 5 crore people who use credit cards. Right? Total, there are around 11 crore credit cards in the country. 5 crore people, individuals use the credit card, which is roughly 4 to 5% of our adult population. Right? So the lot of transactions that you happen that mentioned on UPI, or maybe they are doing the account rails, right? People do not rightly have access to credit, right? But with the premiumization, as you see in cities or the towns, a lot of these transactions are actually done on credit, right? Because they're high ticket size transactions, their salaries or their existing savings don't pay for it. So when the aspirations take over, a lot of those aspirations become in the usage of the credit card, whether it's consumer durables, whether it's apparels, any high ticket size transactions. So the movement from increasing aspirations to using credit is inevitable, and that's also we have seen in the developed markets. That also been happening in India. Slowly it will happen to tier 3, tier 4 towns. The banks, as you rightly said, are still yet to reach, right? But sooner or later, right, these 5 crore customers who are currently using credit card will go to 10 crore, will go to 15 crore, to 20 crore, when you will see that transactions are happening on the aspirational categories on the credit cards. Whether that means that a credit card will be used to make a transaction, say at a grocery store, say for 500 rupees, answer to that might be no. But that won't stop them from.
No, I think, there is one more angle, for credit card penetration, you also need a fiscal discipline. When you're using a credit card, there has to be a self-fiscal discipline that you need to maintain. Because, if you don't have the discipline, you are not getting any further card to your disposal. But, this is where the whole game gets a little complex. Why? Because when you go deep down, the awareness regarding fiscal discipline gets very blunt. It gets very blurred. When you go and teach in tier 4 town that, hey, you have to maintain a good credit score. A banker goes and tells that, I am here to sell you a credit card, but you have to have a good credit score. I mean, he doesn't understand that. What does a good credit score means? You have to have your spend less than 30%. You have to regularly pay off your dues. So all these things are very far away when we go in the hinterland of India. So, I mean,
While I agree what you're saying, so maybe the credit card side of the story for lower tier cities may not be validated fully, because still the credit card penetration is less. But the story which we are talking about is about the number of outlets. Okay, the number of outlets which have come on highway, the number of outlets which are premium and are coming in lower tier city. So from the supply side of the story remains pretty gungo on premiumization. Your groceries, your F&B, that is moving on highway, and I'm talking about the big brands. Then even for the fashion, the mass fashion brands, they are also moving on the highway. Yes, agree that credit card may not be the only indicator for tier 3 and lower cities, but the infrastructure is a good indicator to conclude.
I think, this brings to one very key point that,
Yeah.
in the study that you have done, in the research that you have done, all of us, I mean, all of us are from different sectors of and different industries of retail. I think, we can't escape from the fact that UPI is something which is going to be
Yeah.
the future tool which we as retailers would definitely scramble to kind of get that, okay, this is the location, this is the pocket that where we have the maximum top tier UPI spending which is happening. And probably if my offering fits and aligns with that pocket, probably I get there. Because what would happen, we have RuPay cards, right? And you can use RuPay cards to do your UPI. You can use RuPay cards on UPI. So that's where the convergence is happening. We would see in future technologies which is evolving. Card companies like you, Visa and Mastercard, evolving and bringing newer technological cards where everybody can be a part of that journey and can use card not in a literal sense, but in every sense for that matter.
No, absolutely. And rather the point here is that even the data that ClarityX is bringing or data is Mastercard bringing is not 100%. We are not claiming that it is 100%. But these are but these are surrogates to take an informed decision. This is a much better position vis-a-vis we are taking decision with either no data or a limited data. At least from that position, we are like significantly progress to take informed decision on where do I want to grow, how do I want to grow, which format do I want to establish, what kind of customer segment is available in that market. So that's the endeavor here. Absolutely. Take your point.
Hello. Hey, so just wanted to understand, you showed the contribution between metros and the tier 1, tier 2 markets. Is that contribution change because of growth in the other markets, or is it degrowth in the metros?
No, no. So both the metros, all the markets have grown, right? But the relative growth in tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 and rural is much higher as compared to metro tier 1 and tier 2. That's why the contribution of metro tier 1, tier 2 has come down.
Yeah, I got that. But then how do you triangulate your second slide, which has jewelry, which is one of the larger categories, both growing at the same rate? So which are those categories that have actually swung in favor of tier 2 and tier 2 plus markets?
So the categories electronics and consumer goods have swung in the
To the extent of hitting 10% differential.
yes, also the F&B, grocery to some extent. So these categories have shown much faster growth in the tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 as compared to metro tier 1, tier 2. That's why you see the share shift in the spending. So both have grown, but these categories, especially in tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 have grown much faster. That's why the share has shifted in the total spends.
Category fashion.
Correct.
Is also in tier 3 and 4. It's
Correct.
fashion growing very faster than
Correct.
others.
And
Absolutely.
similar,
Brands, premium brands and fast fashion.
yeah, similarly, when you talk about premiumization, where the ticket sizes about 25,000 have grown, is there a bifurcation of how many transactions are from the same customers versus repeat? Just to understand that, is it that the same individual who was spending 25,000 plus are spending more, or you are seeing more people spending 25,000 plus?
So we are seeing more people spending 25,000. Unfortunately, because of the privacy requirements, we cannot publish customer level data. Our data is always in the anonymized and aggregated fashion. But to your point, there are more people who are doing the transactions which are in 25,000 plus ticket size.
And would you all have this cut off, how much of that split is online and offline?
We do.
So where is the premiumization come? Is it in the online space or in the offline space?
So we don't have that data right away, but we can let you know. Thank you.
Should we show you the demo? Any other questions?
Do we have a data scrapping also in this? Do you do data scrapping from the smartphone users?
No.
As what kind of category of smartphones
So,
and everything?
So, as of now, it is not included in this report per se, but is that available? Yeah, maybe available in your analysis whenever you need to do. But it is not part of this report currently. But that option exists, where we can tell you, okay, what kind of mobile, what kind of habit, let's say consumer persona, if you want to create, that is also possible. That's a separate data set. So what, we'll just show you a little demo, which is, how do you finally go to the location intelligence. Just a second. So this is one kind of, oh, it's not coming. It's been here. अच्छा. क्यों नहीं आ रहा भैया?
We'll just join in.
So while he's taking time to fix it, I'll verbally say it because I don't want to lose you guys. So basically, what the interface is all map-based interface. So it's actually like a map where you can design your territory. You can whatever analysis we do, it will be put on that. You can see there's a lot of data which comes as a table. So there is a facility to see that data by cell. So let's say if there is a grid, there is a map of a pin code. Within that we divide, and for each grid you can see the entire data. So whether it is a consumer data in terms of population, spends, demography, age group, whatever is relevant for your brand. So that attribute file exists. You have capability to download that data. You can zoom in. There we also have integrated real views, which is like a street view from Google. So in the same app, you can also see how that area looks like. For Google, it was updated, for majority of data is updated for 22. For us, it is updated as frequent as 2025 for many locations, depending on the legal, obligations which we have to abide by for the city rules. Otherwise, all those interfaces are there. This app also gives you, it also gives you capability to create your catchment. Let's say if you want to see the dynamic catchment, 3 kilometers versus 5 kilometers catchment, and what is the sales potential, even that can be plugged into it. We work with, quick commerce, e-commerce, so you can also create drive time analysis in case somebody is also delivering to the end customer. So I don't know, unfortunately, technology is not doing well here. So that's what the interface is. I'll just try one more time. So what we have done, we have created DIY where you can put the location, just enter the tab, and the entire statistics is there, which is just the data, playing. If you want the consulting in terms of, within this market, which city, which pin code, within pin code, which location works best for your brand, what is the ranking, all that is possible. And that is the service at the end which we are offering. Maybe if there are more questions we can take. I am not sure. We will send you the link separately, and we'll send you the report. It is not working here. If there are more questions we can take. Otherwise, I think we're done. Any question? Yeah.
You said that 5 crore people in India have credit cards.
Yeah.
How many of them are like tier 1 and metros? Like, I mean, generally, what's the break between tier 3 and metros?
We don't know the exact breakdown, but largely I would say more than 2/3 should be part of metro and the tier 1. And probably the remaining will be from tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. The tier 5, tier 6, of course, penetration is much lower. But there are debit cards, of course, which are also being used in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5. So combining credit plus debit, I think it's a fairly good indicator of where the spends are moving across categories or across markets.
What's the breakup by the HDFC Bank would be the largest? 2-3 crore HDFC would have?
Yeah, almost 30% of the market is by HDFC, yes. HDFC, ICICI, Axis, SBI cards. So these 4 players would be accounting for around 75% of the spend, 70-75%.
Sorry, it is not working. I don't know what happened. Thank you for presence. And all the delegates, they also have our 4-pager report. You can scan it. We also have our code in it, just in case you are more interested in this subject. You can scan. There is a scanner in the report only. Otherwise, we'll give you. We'll just get one report.
Arimit, do we have the reports with the scanner? Thank you again. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time and hope you
Thank
found
you.
this useful.